What is up, baseball fans? Welcome to a very special episode of This Week in Perfect Team. I am not only a man of my word, sporting my jacket and my tie for this special occasion, I am also Kris Jardine, aka Snaggle J, community manager for Out of the Park Baseball's Perfect Team. I am joined tonight by two of my own personal Hall of Famers of my heart. Chief Marketing Officer of Out of the Park Developments, Rich Grisham, and Fangraph's own Paul Sporer. Rich, you first. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. I am so excited to be on here. Talk about Hall of Fame. You two guys are the real Hall of Famers. This is fantastic. I love baseball. I love the Hall of Fame. I love everything about what we're going to do tonight. So let's do this.
And Paul, how's it going, buddy? I know your excitement level is high on days like today. How are you doing, pal?
I'm doing well, and it absolutely is high. I mean, stuff like this also kind of signifies that baseball is on its way back, too, because once you get into the Hall of Fame, we're not too far from pitchers and catchers. And, you know, the last few years, we've had some really, really big classes going in, too. So, yeah, this is awesome. And then to incorporate it with Out of the Park Perfect Team is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, so a little preview what's going to come tonight, guys. We're going to talk about the ballot. And then we are going to introduce all six, that's right, six brand new inductees into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. We are going to talk about each and every one of them. And each and every one of them will be getting their very own Perfect Team brand new card, which are available in the game right now. We loaded them in before the stream started. We're going to talk about them. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's throw up the...
By the way, yeah, Kris, before you do that,
yeah,
can I just say, by the way, how awesome that is? Like, yes, I know I have a vested interest, but seriously, how cool is it that you, Kris, you put in the work for this, right? This didn't just magically happen. You went through a whole lot of stuff to make these cards available today as the announcements were made. Amazing job by you and the rest of the Out of the Park Developments team.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a very big... This production is a huge team effort, for sure. Like I said, you know, from the guys doing the ratings to the guys doing the artwork, the putting of the show together, for Paul dedicating his part of his evening to be here and share some of his infinite wisdom. It's going to be a lot of fun. So let's jump in real quick and take a look at the ballot. As you can see, the four gentlemen who were elected by voting into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, Mariano Rivera becomes the first player in Hall of Fame history to appear on 100% of the ballots. I know there was a lot of speculation today that who was going to be the old curmudgeon-y baseball writer who left Rivera off of their ballot. Roy Halladay gets elected on his first try. Unfortunately, it is posthumously, but 85.4%. Edgar Martinez with an identical 85.4% on his 10th and final try. And Mike Mussina squeaks in with 326 votes. Paul, do you find the Mussina election surprising? I know it was really 50-50. I'm curious to know, were you confident that Mussina was going to get in?
I felt pretty good that he was going to get in, and it's about time. He definitely deserves to be in. I think he's one of those guys that really, when you look at the body of work, it's hard to make the case against. He doesn't. We don't have those measures anymore of the 300 wins and all that. That the volume has certainly changed, but I mean, you look at some of the WAR calculations or the JAWS that Jay Jaffe does, however you want to do it. And one of the best things about WAR, I think, is as a cumulative. You can have your issues with the stat, but as a cumulative, it does a great job of identifying how good players are. And, you know, he looks like a top 30 pitcher off of the JAWS metric, which, again, Jay Jaffe does. Jay Jaffe's second to none as far as the Hall of Fame work goes. If you're not digging what he's doing, and trying to understand the methodology that he has, Jay Jaffe over at Fangraphs, and that's not just because he's at Fangraphs. It was great when he was at S. Then you're really not trying to understand the Hall of Fame. And just by total WAR over at Baseball Reference, Mussina's 23rd. By the Jaws numbers, he's 29th. So we're talking about a top 30 starting pitcher here. He belonged in, and again, it was an easy one for me, even though by the votes it looks like he's 3 or 4 from kind of being on the other side of it.
Yeah, I felt like it was going to be really close. To me, Mussina might be the best pitcher in the last 40 years not to win a Cy Young, which is quite surprising, right, considering the years that he put up. Multiple 19-win seasons. He had that, was it 20 or 21 win season as well. Surprising that he never won a Cy Young, but I'm glad to see that the voters were able to look past, those types of superficial awards and say, hey, listen, this guy is worthy. I'm glad to see him get in.
Think about that 1992 year that Mussina had when he put up a 2.54 ERA and a 1.08 WHIP. That was the year that Eckersley won. I believe he also won the MVP that year. Both of those votes were remarkably stupid. Had no business doing that. No offense to Eck, but that's just a terrible vote. Now, you can debate whether Clemens should have won the Cy Young that year over Moose, but those two should have been 1-2, and they were actually 3-4. Yeah. So we've come a long way in voting, and that's probably the biggest standout year where Moose not winning a Cy Young was like, wow, that's crazy. And I know it was early in his career, so maybe they had all these stupid, they can't give it to a young guy, he's got to earn it, or all that stupid trash. But he absolutely deserved to be in heavy consideration for several. And I think that was his highest finish. Actually, no, he had a second place finish years into his career, but that was behind Pedro when Pedro put up 10 wins. Yeah. So he wasn't going to win that year.
Yeah. Rich, are you surprised that Rivera got 100% of the vote? I was a little surprised. I'd be curious to know what you think, Rich.
Yeah, I'm surprised, and frankly, I would be more surprised if someone said they're not surprised, because it's never happened before.
Yeah.
Many times.
Here's the thing. Them finally doing it with Mo exposes their stupidity from not doing it ever before. Yeah. Because with due respect to Mo, this is nothing against him. The fact that he's the first one is a complete joke.
Agreed.
And as great as he is, there's no way that a closer, even the best one ever, should be the first unanimous guy in. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, that's you're exactly right. And what it says to me, and I'm a very positive guy, Kris, as we were talking before, right? I love the Hall of Fame. I love baseball. I really prefer a lot of the game oriented conversations and stuff like that. But if I were Tom Seaver, Griffey, I'd be a little miffed right now. Yeah. Right? Not trying to go negative, but there are, to Paul's point, there are players who should, if this is a thing that's going to be, there are players who should have been 100% well before. But putting that aside, I will say this, right? And a lot of the conversation I'm going to have is going to be from the prism of my personal baseball experience, for one reason, because Paul is an encyclopedia. So, like, to me, my contribution is not so much the numbers, but it's sort of the memory. Mariano Rivera completely changed the position. He's a closer. And Mike Mussina, going back to him for a minute, right? I'm a Mets fan. I've been watching baseball with some, awareness of what was going on since 1980. Once I saw him every single year pitching in the playoffs. I didn't look this up because I didn't want to. I just sort of my initial gut reaction. Mike Mussina always pitched every year in the postseason for the Orioles and the Yankees, or it sure seemed like it. And a dude like that, who whenever I saw him pitch, it certainly felt like a lot more often than not, he was really, really good. He was just from the sniff test, so to speak, was a fantastic player, and I'm glad that he got in. And Mariano being 100%, yes, I'm surprised. Like you said, it exposes the whole can of worms that's now open, which is mixing metaphors. And yes, other players deserved it before him. But if somebody were going to get 100%, I'm not going to argue against Mariano Rivera, who, again, I'm a Mets fan. Mariano was never a dude that I enjoyed watching pitch until the end, when I sort of realized, that it was ending. And I respect greatness. But wow, yeah, 100%. If it's going to be somebody, Mariano, can't think of a better person.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll circle back to Rivera a little bit, but I just find it funny. And I know they're not comparable players, but when you look at another guy who was elected by the Veterans Committee, Lee Smith, who in 16 years on the ballot never got over 50% other than one time, and is third all time in saves. And again, not on the same level as Rivera, but he's in that echelon of the top 5 closers of all time. Never got a sniff of the Hall of Fame in the voting. And then Rivera goes 100% the first time. Again, not extremely comparable players, but it shows you how things have changed in the last 10 years, I think, in them now breaking through this ceiling of having a unanimous player. You know, immediately people are looking to Jeter next year, who I don't think is a unanimous player. And that's another conversation for another day. But now, again, this has finally taken that mystique of, will we ever have a unanimous Hall of Famer? And we don't have to worry about that anymore. The past is the past. Nope. We can't change that now. But at least now we've broken through this glass ceiling of never having a unanimous player.
And that's a good thing,
yeah,
I think.
So let's look at the next group of guys who got more than 50%. Curt Schilling checks in at 60.9%. Clemens, 59.5%. Bonds, 59.1%. Larry Walker, 54.6%. So 3 guys who have a lot of, let's say, negative press surrounding them. And Larry Walker, who doesn't always get the most favorable coverage. A lot of talk about Coors Field and, you know, again, anyone from that era, possible links to PEDs. Paul, do you see these 4 guys being over 50% as a pretty much a lock at this point, that we're going to see, especially Schilling, Clemens, and Bonds in the Hall of Fame at some point?
Boy, I don't. Schilling, yes, despite his post-career off the field stuff, I think he will get in. Bonds and Clemens, I don't know, because they were tracking at 70% on the amazing work that Ryan Thibodeau does at Not Mr. Thibs on Twitter. He collects all the ballots, tracks all the ones that are public, and they both had 70%. So for them to both go down to 60% when all the private ballots came in, that's huge. I mean, because, you know, obviously those are the cowards that don't vote because they don't want to have to answer for why they're going to leave these guys out and have to deal with it. They can kind of wash their hands of it. I don't know. I think both should be in. It is kind of odd. Well, the weirdest thing perhaps is that 2 people voted for Clemens and not Bonds. I don't know how you're going to do one but not the other. That's a little odd. I'm not surprised to see them so close, but even those 2 ballots are kind of weird. But yeah, I think Schilling tracks in, getting 4 off the ballot this year. At the top end, it'll still be a pretty thick ballot going forward here, with a few guys coming on next year who have cases, but I don't think it'll be cluttered enough to kind of ignore Schilling. And everything I said for Mussina is right there the same for Schilling in terms of the viability of his credentials based on the numbers. There is, you know, a morality clause or whatever, but I think that's also only what they do while they're playing too. So the fact that he's a clown, you know, now is unlikely to hamper Schilling, and I do think he belongs in, despite not really agreeing with anything he says.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm a firm believer that Schilling, Bonds, and Clemens all belong in the Hall of Fame.
100%.
Whether, again, I kind of agree with you. I think Schilling will get in. He has 4 more ballots remaining, and is, you know, about 62, 63 votes shy right now. I think he's going to be able to pick that up. I'm wondering, and this is a very good thing that I see Coop puts in the chat, Joe Morgan has had some very strong opinions about these guys in the past. And I'll be full disclosure, I am not a huge fan of Joe Morgan's post-career, you know, broadcasting and anything he's done. But you have to imagine that this has an effect on people who somewhat share his opinion, who have a vote. I mean, they're looking at the possibility of, in their mind, Roger Clemens standing at the podium and literally nobody sitting behind him because, you know, they think, oh man, if we elect one of these guys, like, that has to have some sort of impact. I mean, Joe Morgan, his opinion is taken very seriously. He's a Hall of Famer. He earned that right. But I don't know, man. It is still such a hard prediction to where Bonds and Clemens especially are going to end up. Again, I feel like I feel bad for Larry Walker. I really do. I know that, again, there's a very good case to be made for and against Larry Walker. The Coors Field thing really, really hurts his chances. I don't think he makes a 20% jump on his 10th and final ballot next year, unfortunately. And I got to pull for my Canadian guys, right? That's just kind of part of our constitution.
Here's the thing: if Larry Walker can get a Tim Raines like, everyone behind him sort of deal, and get some folks out there really putting together those big pieces at Fangraphs, Beyond the Box Score, Baseball Perspectives, all that sort of stuff to really get that push out there. And again, now that we've taken 4 more off the ballot who are very deserving, and it kind of clears that path, there is no universe where Larry Walker isn't a surefire Hall of Famer. There's no numbers that you can come up with that can tell me that he's not. Even those of you who are most aggressive on Coors Field being an inflator, that still doesn't, even if you tamp that down a bit, it still doesn't do enough to take him off. He's an easy guy. Going back to those numbers real quick, the Jaws metric, he's 10th in right field. 10th. And so he's easily in Larry Walker for sure.
So looking at the rest of the guys who will stay on the ballot, I'm just going to pick a couple, and I'll let you guys pick a couple that you want to talk about. For me, a couple that really stand out. I feel bad for Andrew Jones. Criminally underrated career. I'm glad to see that he stays on the ballot. I hope that at some point people will realize how criminally underrated Andrew Jones is at 7.5%. And I think Sosa, I mean, I know there's so much surrounding Sammy Sosa, but less than 10%,
it's wild.
I don't get that. I don't know. Paul, is there any of the guys who are staying on and who didn't get in, is there anyone on there that particularly sticks out to you as surprising?
Oh, so they have to be staying on, because I was really going to go off on Darren Oliver.
We're gonna go to the other side. We're gonna go to the other side here in a minute.
Scott Rowland for sure is honestly he's a surefire guy for me. I don't know again like what people can look at that doesn't land with them saying that Scott Rowland is a Hall of Famer. Defense matters, right? I think sometimes we get a little bit too fantasy baseball focused and really only zero in on the offense without giving full credit to the defense. And some folks out there making cases for Omar Vizquel, which there's a case. I don't really lean with it because his offense was so bad. He was a detriment with the bat, so he had to be that good with the glove. Rowland was elite with the bat and the glove. Going back one more time to Jaws, 10th at third base. So we got 2 top 10 guys here, Rowland and Walker, who absolutely need to be in. So Scott Rowland is mine because he's amazing, man. And there's third base is underrepresented as it is, but even if it weren't, he would easily be in. So Scott Rowland for me.
Nice. Rich, what about you? Anything stick out to you on that side of the page?
Well, for different reasons, Jeff Kent. Jeff Kent, as a Mets fan, it was extremely painful to see a good Jeff Kent leave the Mets and go to the Giants and become the great Jeff Kent. And he was the great Jeff Kent, and he's a Hall of Famer. No doubt in my mind. I mean, he's got to he was one of the absolute best for an extended period of time. And again, I did not look at the numbers. This is just sort of from memory. But Jeff Kent was an absolute beast in San Francisco, and he's my guy.
Yep. Did you say there was another one, or just the Kent?
Well, no. I mean, that's the number one. I also think Todd Helton is, if I picked a second, and there's others like Gary Sheffield. I feel strongly about Gary Sheffield.
Yeah, feel very strongly about him.
I'll be very happy. I'll be very happy when the Veterans Committee puts Fred McGriff in next year. I think.
Well, it'll take a little while because they go through
they rotate,
eras,
right?
And it will be like 3 years until they do a today's game era again. But McGriff is somebody who will get it, and I do think McGriff does get short shrift there, and is a viable guy to get in. I think for me, I think there's like different types of Hall of Famers. Not everybody has to be the Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, Randy Johnson, et cetera, et cetera. Like there are levels, right? Because even allowing somebody who's on kind of the lower end, maybe like a McGriff, we're talking about the top 1% of baseball. Like even with loosening things up a little bit. So
Right.
I think there's easily a spot for somebody like Fred McGriff, who was a great player. And I think there's some value in playing so well for several teams too. Moving around like that, that's not easy.
No.
So, to do that and to kind of go from team to team almost as like a mercenary. Now, most of it was via trades too. So it's not like he was out there saying, get me out of here. He was getting moved around. Fred McGriff, crime dog, what a beast.
Yeah.
And he was getting moved around because he was so good, and he helped a lot of teams get into the playoffs and a lot 100%. Of teams win in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, he was a centerpiece of a trade that pretty much won the Blue Jays 2 World Series.
Yep.
I mean, I loved watching him in Toronto, but what we got out of that was, because he was so highly coveted,
Amir, Robbie Alomar, and Joe Carter, for those who don't remember.
Exactly. The 2 cornerstones of back-to-back world championships. So taking a look at the other side, guys with less than 5%, who unfortunately we will no longer see on ballots. Pretty much what
there's really only one
we expected.
Right.
Darren Oliver.
Well, obviously Darren Oliver. We're gonna do a separate episode on that, right?
Yes,
that's about So I don't want to spoil that episode. But jokes aside, I think there's really only one who you can make a really strong case for, and it's kind of upsetting that he didn't get the, and that's Lance Berkman.
Yeah.
I think not that he's a lockdown Hall of Famer, but in terms of like actually having a case. Debate him, I think Lance Berkman is definitely viable, and the under 5% is kind of stupid. It's unnecessary. Same with the being able to only vote for 10. These are both unnecessary restrictions that just make things harder. So it's a cluttered ballot because of the 10 max rule, and so it burns a guy like Lance Berkman, who I think will get heavy consideration when his Veterans Committee time comes up, because now that's a case where you can say that with Baines getting in, someone like Berkman definitely has a case because he'll be Veterans Committee.
Yeah.
To me, it's Miguel Tejada. He was great. And he played for a lot of teams. Like,
he's got an MVP.
Exactly how many, but he hit home runs, and he was an impact player on every single team in every single lineup. And that's my pick for, hey, he should be on the left side of this vote, not the right side.
Yeah, I could see the case for Tejada. Again, a lot of negative things have been written about Tejada in the years since his career, but there's no denying he was a power left side of the infielder before that was cool. In that era, in that era of the up and coming A-Rods and things like that. I mean, Miggy was unbelievable over there. And I agree with Berkman as well. I was really surprised to see Berkman only get 5 votes. And again, I like Paul said,
it's just the clutter.
It's unfortunate with so many deserving guys. I mean, you could easily make a 15-person ballot and do that.
That's almost why I thought Mo wouldn't get 100%. And I thought it could be somebody who would share their ballot and say, listen, you guys are going to hate me, I understand, but the ballot's so cluttered that I knew he would get in, that I gave this so-called 11th vote to somebody else, just knowing that my brethren would get Mo in. But nobody ended up doing that. But I think that would have been a justifiable reason not to vote Mo.
And if I could just throw in real quick, Derek Lowe was amazing in helping the Red Sox win their first World Series in forever. Starting, relieving, going, he really, that was a real forebear of modern playoff baseball. And it's like not even one.
Yeah.
And he was a special guy. I'm not saying he's a Hall of Famer, but 0 votes. I would have.
I hear you. All right. So that is our views on the ballot. Now let's talk about the 6 players who will be entering Cooperstown in 2019 and who all have brand new shiny cards available in Perfect Team right now. And now in the great hosting capacity that I am, I've prepared a little paragraph about each one of them. Like I said, I told Rich, I feel like this show may rival the actual induction, but we'll see how the reviews come back. So let's start off with Harold Baines. Harold Douglas Baines, drafted first overall in 1977 by the Chicago White Sox. Baines went on to play in over 2,800 games. The model of consistency with 10 seasons of over 20 home runs, 8 seasons of over 80 RBIs, and 8 seasons with an average in excess of 300. Baines finished his career with 384 home runs, 1,628 RBIs, and 2,866 hits. The 6-time All-Star was selected for Cooperstown by the Veterans Committee. And here is a look available right now, as leaked on Twitter earlier today by yours truly, the 89 overall peak Harold Baines. Congratulations, Baines. Sporer, thoughts on Harold Baines?
Hey, look, it's not his fault that the Veterans Committee did this. So, giving him hell and raining on his parade, I don't subscribe to it. I wouldn't necessarily put him in personally myself, but he's in. This card looks dope. Put him at your DH. I mean, you could fake him in right field if you were kind of eschewing defense, but I certainly wouldn't do it at anything higher than maybe silver level. But let me get that at DH for sure. That looks like a monstrous card. Baines was a beast for me as a kid growing up watching him just hit. He was that, you hear the term professional hitter, and then there's always someone who says, oh, they're all professional hitters because they're in MLB. Like we know what that term means though, right? Edgar's one of those, and there's just Michael Young, those guys who just hit and they have that inherent skill. Harold Baines was absolutely part of that. Great paragraph there on Baines, and this card should be fun. I'll definitely slot him in at DH if I can either pack him or find him on the market.
Yeah, I feel like he gets a lot of the negativity he gets in baseball circles is because most of his success is based on counting stats, which again have become less cool as the years have gone by. But I mean, you can't look at his baseball reference page and not say that this guy produced everywhere he went. Again, give me a guy that's going to consistently in those eras when he hit anywhere from 5th to 7th in the order. Especially on those loaded White Sox teams in the early 90s. To be able to hit 300 with 20 homers and 80 RBIs, I mean, that's a career. That he made a career of hitting 300 with 20 homers and 80 RBIs. He did it consistently, at an above average level for double digits of years. I get it. Again, when you compare his metrics to other Hall of Famers, perhaps it doesn't measure up, but there is a very, very strong case to be made that Harold Baines is worthy of this. Obviously, the Veterans Committee thought enough of him to make him their selection. I'm a fan. I've always been a Harold Baines fan. I'm glad to see him get some recognition. Rich, do you have any Harold Baines quips, thoughts, memories?
I do. So let me tell you a little story about a kid who was, 11, 12, 13 years old, living in Ocean County, New Jersey, 80s. I got the sporting news every week, and all the television channels we had were the local CBS, NBC, and ABC. And I never saw Harold Baines play. Time I read the sporting news, in every box score that they printed, he would have 1 to 2 hits and 1 to 2 RBI. And in all of the lists of the leading, hitters and home run hitters and RBIs, his name would always be on the list. And play, because the only national baseball I could ever see would be the game of the week, the NBC game of the week.
Yeah, kids, it used to be rough back in the day. We didn't get to watch every single game on our portable computers.
Yeah.
So for most of my early following of baseball, like when I first really started to follow it and really fall in love with it, he was just a name. By his name, something good was next to it. And then obviously later on, you know, when cable TV was a thing that we could actually get, and, you know, it became a little bit easier to see more teams play, although that didn't really get easy until after the new century, when we really want to step back and think about it. So I never saw him play, but he was always there, and I have fond memories of that. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very interesting, quote unquote, relationship I had in baseball to Harold Baines. But he was always the guy who always had big numbers next to his name, and I'm totally cool with him being in the Hall of Fame.
Well, he is in the Hall of Fame, and this is his first appearance in Out of the Park's Perfect Team. Again, these cards are available in packs right now. 89 peak Harold Baines. I agree with what Sporer said. I think he'll make an excellent DH. He's going to strike out a little bit with that 49 avoid Ks, but overall, pretty solid looking hitting card. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have Lee Smith. Lee Arthur Smith, one of the best closers in baseball history. Smith was the career record holder for saves for a 13-year span from 1993 until 2006, finishing his career with 478. The 7-time All-Star finished 802 games in his career, which is still good for third all-time. In the 80s and early 90s, there were very few relievers that were as automatic as Smith in the late game. Selected by the Veterans Committee, we welcome Lee Smith to the Hall of Fame. And there is a look at Lee Smith's brand new 95 peak diamond card with that 128 stuff, a 100 rated fastball, and a 106 rated slider. Paul.
Oh, man. That is absolutely filthy.
Yeah.
There is no team that can't harbor this card in their bullpen. I mean, come on. Yeah, you're going to see the extreme fly ball, but the movement's going to cancel that out a bit. Mm-hmm. And if you've got some good outfielders there chasing down some of those shots in the gap, like an Andrew Jones, someone we talked about earlier, I think you're going to be just fine. Maybe they hit in the air a lot, but they don't hit it very often with the 128 stuff. That card is nasty.
So one thing I want to mention, because I know we're going to get this question at some point, these Hall of Fame cards that we're introducing we're showing off a new way that we're going to calculate the peak ratings moving into Out of the Park 20, where we're going to start building the peak cards more around the best attributes from different seasons. We've had a lot of feedback about our peak cards. Some of our peak cards are not the best card for a particular player. We have heard that feedback. We've decided now that going forward, peak cards will be the best card likely for that player. So this peak Lee Smith, for example, is a combination of all of the best different things that Lee Smith did over his career. So the 91 control is likely based off of his best 2 or 3 walk rate seasons. So it's going to be really neat. We wanted to try this out and get some really good feedback on it as well. This card is filthy. I remember a few weeks ago when we introduced the Dwayne Ward card, there was a lot of comments about how, there's always room for more bullpen arms. This guy right here, and I mean, I'm not going to lie, he's not the best reliever we're going to introduce on this stream. I think that's probably the worst kept secret in video gaming at the moment, that there is going to be a better reliever here in a few minutes. But this card is filthy. This card, if you're lucky enough to get a hold of one of these Lee Smith, he is not going to let you down in the back end of that bullpen. And 4 above average pitches. I mean, he's going to get some guys out. This is a 12, 13 K per 9 card easily, I would have to think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I know, again, I was always a big Lee Smith fan. He kind of got started a little before my time, but I know
it was so intimidating.
In the look he reminds me, going back to last night with the new cards we revealed. We talked a little bit about Dave Stewart.
Yes, also
Dave Stewart and that glare. Lee Smith had that glare, and he was staring a hole through you when you were at the plate against him.
That's what I wanted for my beloved Tigers in that period when they were succeeding was a reliever that imposed that fear on other teams. If you're facing the team, if your team, your favorite club is facing Lee Smith and he comes in, sure, he blew some games. Obviously, he pitched, 1,300 innings. He blew some games. But for the most part, you thought that game was over. Your team lost if he was coming in with a lead. He was just imposing and just an absolute mountain of a man at 6'5", 230, and just a total beast. Lee Smith was a monster.
Dude, let me tell you my Lee Smith story. 1984. Mets were good in my life, or since I had been cognizant of the Mets. All right, 1984. 83 was like they showed some. That was the year that Strawberry came up. That was the year they traded for Keith Hernandez. But 84, they were legit good. That summer, I spent 2 weeks at my grandparents' in Arkansas with the fact that the Mets were playing the Cubs in a 5-game series at Wrigley Field that same 2-week period. And my grandparents had WGN that through their cable. The first time I ever saw Lee Smith was when the Mets and the Cubs were playing at Wrigley Field. The Cubs swept the Mets in that series. And by the way, back then, the Cubs and the Mets played in the same division. Yeah. That was the first time I ever saw Lee Smith. And he was exactly like you said. When you're the Mets and you're good for the first time ever, you got this scrappy little team, Wally Backman and Darryl Strawberry and a young Dwight Gooden but you had Ray Knight and you had Keith Hernandez and you didn't have Gary Carter back then. They didn't get him till 85. And then Lee Smith comes in, absolutely dominates and looks amazingly intimidating doing it. And then the Mets and the Cubs got in a big brawl when Keith Moreland got hit by a pitch. Oh my gosh, it was insane. But like my first exposure to Lee Smith was when he just helped the Cubs crush the Mets in 1984. The Cubs on the way to winning their division that year when they lost to the Padres in the National League Championship Series. Nothing, they lost the last 3.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Lee Smith, he's in the perfect team. I believe he had 2 other cards already. I know you have 1 for sure. But we've got this brand new shiny 95 diamond. Congratulations to Lee Smith being selected by the Veterans Committee to enter Cooperstown later this year. Now let's move on to the guys who were elected. Now these next 2 cards, I already know they're going to create controversy because of the teams that we put on them. And I bring it on. Bring it on 100%. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Mussina. Michael Cole Mussina was a former first-rounder who not only baffled hitters with his amazing knuckle curveball, but also played a pretty mean pitching fielder. Mussina won 270 games over his 18-year career, split between Baltimore and the Yankees. The 5-time All-Star and 7-time Gold Glover, Moose had an intense demeanor on the mound. While he never won a Cy Young Award, he finished in the top 5 in voting on 6 separate occasions. Mussina posted 15 or more wins 11 times over his extremely consistent career. With a .638 winning percentage and a .368 career ERA, join me in welcoming Mike Mussina to his rightful place amongst baseball's elite in Cooperstown. Now let's reveal the Baltimore Orioles version of Mike Mussina. 96 overall diamond. Really good stuff movement control balance. Obviously the knuckle curve way up there. 95 stamina. Sporer. Immediate reactions on the Mussina card.
Beastly, and there's absolutely no world where he wouldn't be an Oriole. You made the absolute right decision here. Come on. As I said in the chat, only delusional Yankees fans would think otherwise. You cannot look at the numbers and not feel that way. Everything was better with Baltimore. Even if you just want to go off tenure alone, he threw 500 plus more innings with Baltimore, let alone the fact that the performance was much better. The right call here. And frankly, I'm super excited to land a quality Moose here because that other one just comes up a little bit short, the current Oriole that we have, because I can't find myself using it with a 53 stuff and mediocre movement. The control would have to just be way higher. So this is going to be great. Cannot wait to get this Moose into one of my lineups for sure.
I feel like, and again, I mean, I haven't used all the cards in the game. I think Sporer, you're probably a little more well versed in this, but the Mussina that we have in the game may be one of the most criminally underrated cards from that era that we have. It's one of those things. I've looked at it. I've had it a few times. This card here represents what Mike Mussina was as a baseball player, and that is a really darn good starting pitcher who every time he took the mound, you knew you were getting 6 to 7 innings and a chance to win the game.
Absolutely. One of the tough things, sorry to cut you off there.
No.
One of the tough things is guys like this and Dave Stewart, they didn't have great strikeout rates, and even commensurate to their league, or when comparable to their league, I should say. Like, so when you look at it, they won off of those 3 and out at bats, getting guys out within 3 pitches, pop-ups, ground balls, easily playable fly balls, not walking guys. So you can give them really good control, and their hits, shouldn't be too high, but even their hit rates were a little high. It was just one of those, that era, right before the steroid era really popped off, you could get by allowing a lot of contact, and that he only had a 14% strikeout rate in 1992. So that was all you could really do for Moose.
Yeah. I mean, he was amazing in Baltimore. He was amazing in New York. And again, like, just, criminally terrible that he never won a Cy Young, because he was so good over such a long period of time. That, you look at, and you look at some of the seasons he had, and you think, again, unfortunately we had guys in those seasons that were better. But you know what? As a Blue Jays fan, you knew if you turned on the TV and Mike Mussina was on the hill for the Orioles or the Yankees that you were going to lose, and like, you would find something else to do with your afternoon because you knew you were going to lose. It was that simple. It was an L. You didn't beat Mike Mussina most days. Even the games where it looked like he was in trouble, he'd keep you to 3 runs over 7. And in those days, 3 runs over 7, your team was going to win most of the time. Again, so I closet Mussina fan, again, as a Jays fan, hard to be a huge Mussina fan. Rich, do you have any Mussina thoughts?
Well, yeah, as I said earlier, he just always seemed to be pitching in the big games in the playoffs. As an observer, he never really, I don't recall him in any way sort of being an enemy of the Mets or anything like that. They faced once each other in the World Series. I don't know if Mussina was on that team or not. I actually don't remember. But regardless, whenever he pitched in a lot of big games, and he pitched he had a really elegant style, right? He had a very interesting delivery. He had some really interesting pitches, a lot of movement. Like, he was just a fascinating guy to watch pitch. He had a very interesting approach and a unique delivery. And that's something that I sort of remember about him more than anything else.
Well, Mike Mussina, soon to be a Hall of Famer, now the proud owner of this wonderful Peak 96 Diamond, again, available in packs right now. If you happen to pull one, make sure you tweet us at OOTP Perfect Team so I can see it and retweet it and get it out there. Also, if you're in the Discord, discord.gg/OTP, we have a Fire Pulls channel. Post it in there. Make all 2,200 plus of our Discord members jealous that you were the first person to find one of these Mike Mussinas. Next up, one that I may have a difficult time getting through for reasons I will explain afterwards, but Roy Halladay. Harry Leroy Halladay, better known as Doc, was drafted in the first round by the Blue Jays in 1995. He burst onto the scene in September of 1998 and took a no-hitter into the 9th inning in his second career start. From that moment on, Halladay struggled for several seasons with his command and his inability to get hitters out. After diving into the realm of sports psychology, Doc reemerged in a big way in 2002 as he won 19 games and was an American League All-Star. This kicked off a 10-year span where Halladay won 170 games, 2 Cy Young Awards, and made 8 All-Star appearances. He famously became the second pitcher in baseball history to throw a no-hitter in the playoffs in 2010 in his very first career postseason start, a season in which he also threw a perfect game in the regular season. Tragically, Doc passed away on November 7th, 2017 in a plane accident. Doc finished his career with a record of 203 and 105, a career ERA of 3.38. Halladay today was elected to the Hall of Fame on his very first ballot. Please welcome Roy Halladay to Cooperstown and his brand new 97 overall diamond historical legend. I have no shame in admitting that when they announced that Roy Halladay was going in the Hall of Fame, I sobbed like a baby. For the simple reason that this guy was my franchise for 10 years. In college, I wanted to pitch like Roy Halladay. I tried to emulate Halladay's delivery, his demeanor, you know, that the movement on the fastball, the curveball. Roy Halladay, to me, in my, you know, more recent era, was everything I wanted to be as a baseball player. He was, to me, what a pitcher should be. Yep. Business, didn't talk to the media on game days, which the media hated, and I loved it. He was locked in. And again, just like Mussina was the opposite, you knew when Roy Halladay was on the mound, you had a 99.9% chance you were leaving with a W. On some really, really bad Blue Jays teams in the mid-2000s, to have that guy every fifth day that, you know, would give you that chance to win was amazing. I was still a fan of his when he went to Philadelphia. You know, just gutted what happened to him after his career. But I am very, very happy to see him get elected in the Hall of Fame. I need me this card as soon as humanly possible. Again, the stuff movement control combination is just deadly. The 103 stamina, just an all-around professional baseball player and a pretty darn good perfect team card as well.
Fantastic card. This is a must-have. Absolutely a must-have in every way, in every level. I mean, there's no level where you can't fit this card onto your team here. That 83 movement is fantastic, balanced by paired with the 91 control for Halladay. This is going to be so sick. It was devastating when we lost him, obviously, way too soon. It's a bummer that he won't be able to give his speech. He was great. I remember one of my memories of Roy Halladay is one of my first big breakdowns of writing about a pitcher and profiling them was on my own personal blog years ago about Roy Halladay and how he, had that awful 2000 where he had a 10.64 ERA, got sent all the way down to A ball, worked with Mel Queen to work his way all the way back up and to become what he became. And just honestly, he's an exception, but he's still why I refuse to give up on pitchers early when they struggle.
Yep.
Because we see guys go to much further depths than, say, somebody like Roy Halladay or Scott Kazmir, who was pitching in independent ball. And so when you see a guy who struggles in the majors, doesn't even get demoted, I'm like, I'm not quitting that guy. He's got 10 more levels before he goes down to what Roy Halladay had to do to build his way back up. So just a great guy, too. You never hear a bad word about him. I was mentioning it in the chat. AJ Burnett wrote a great piece about Doc and how they were together. This was back in earlier this year, but it resurfaced again with this induction, and I encourage everyone to take a look.
Yeah, it's you won't find someone who played with him that has a bad thing to say about him. In fact, there's countless articles written by many players who claim that Halladay helped them get through a lot of mental struggles in their careers. Mm-hmm. People who, were not in a good place mentally, who had all the talent in the world. And Halladay, again, a lot of the things, like he reinvented himself not only as a pitcher, but he reinvented himself as a person, and and completely changed the way his mindset operated, every fifth day. And I mean, the results speak for themselves. Again, in the 2000s era, 170 wins in 10 seasons is just unheard of levels of consistency in the last 30 years.
He's pretty much the last true workhorse we're going to get to, regularly leading the league in complete games, and not even with double digits, with a bunch of nines when, of course, back in the day, there'd be like 30s, guys putting up 30s out there. And 4 shutouts in both 09 and 10, once with Toronto, once with Philly there. Yeah, just the last of a particular era of workhorse too. And he could have been even better. He dealt with some injuries in his mid-20s there. If you get those, 150 innings back on those 2 seasons, 04, 05, just imagine what he could have done there.
Yeah. Rich, do you have any Halladay thoughts, memories?
Couple. I work in the Philadelphia area, in the Philadelphia suburb. So when Halladay came to the Phillies, it was a big deal. And he came to a team that was a recent World Series champion, and he helped extend that team's run. They didn't win another World Series, but they were in the mix for several more years. And it was really interesting to see the lift that his presence brought to the team and the city. It was palpable. You could tell. And it's one of the wonderful things about baseball, in which Roy Halladay credits Mariano Rivera for showing him that Rivera used for his cutter, and how he shared it with Halladay when Halladay asked him, and how Halladay sort of struggled with it until he could get the placement of his fingers just right, and how he credited that in part with extending his career. And he really did have a long career, relatively speaking, for the kind of pitcher that he was. Yeah. So wonderful intersection of 2 guys getting in the Hall of Fame in the same day. It's again, one of the reasons that baseball is what it is. Just awesome.
I respect Roy Halladay so much that there's not even a little part of me that would be upset if he went in the Hall of Fame as a Philly. I don't expect it to happen. I expect him to go in the Hall of Fame as a Blue Jay.
Same.
But again, the 4 seasons that he pitched in Philadelphia, the first 2 especially, were unbelievable. I wouldn't be in the least bit upset if he went in the Hall of Fame as a Philly. I don't think it's going to happen, but
there's just too much tied to what he is, because I mean, he loved Mel Queen, the pitching coach who helped him build back. Just so much tied to Toronto. Yeah. I can't see it.
I can't see it either. But again, it's just, I have so much respect for him as a person. Again, Roy Halladay, newly elected Hall of Famer, brand new 97 overall, historical legend, peak card, must have for myself. I'm going to rip a million packs tonight until I find them. So now we're down to the final 2, the big headliners for the class of 2019. First up, let's talk about Edgar Martinez. Edgar Martinez was signed by the Seattle Mariners in 1982, and there he stayed in the organization for all 22 years of his professional career. One of the original professional hitters, Martinez redefined the traditional designated hitter position by showcasing above-average contact versus strictly a power game. Edgar finished his career with 2,247 hits, 309 home runs, 1,261 RBIs, more walks than strikeouts, and a career .312 batting average. Edgar also won batting titles in 1992 and 1995. He made 7 All-Star appearances and won the Silver Slugger Award 5 times in the American League. For Mariners fans, Edgar may be most remembered for his walk-off double in the 11th inning of Game 5 of the 1995 ALDS. A career that was defined by consistency, productivity, and most of all, class. Edgar was elected to the Hall of Fame on his 10th and final try. Please join me in congratulating Edgar Martinez on his election to the Baseball Hall of Fame and his 99 overall peak historical legend card. Oh my, this card.
So nuts.
And you know what? I actually complained about the avoid Ks being 42. I'm like, what? It's Edgar Martinez. But the response I got was, we can't have him be 105. No, that's not the actual response that I got. But this card is absolutely filthy at the plate. I mean, you're looking at a card that's easily going to hit 320, 330, 25 dingers. And again, like Paul, you've alluded to with a lot of the other cards, this card plays at every level, hands down.
Yeah. There's just no way he doesn't. Obviously, ideally as a DH, because the third base defense isn't that strong. But I mean, honestly, if I got stuck in a position where I had to put him there, I would, just because I have to get that bat in my lineup. So even if I had to take the hit at third base, or maybe just stick him at first and try to hope he figures it out without being too much of a detriment there. That bat, oh my God, it is so disgusting. I tend to agree with you, though, that maybe the 42 avoid K is a little bit too low, but I think the contact will offset it.
We'll talk to somebody about that. That's going to be in the post-production of the show. We're going to be talking to some people about that.
He had more walks than Ks.
Yeah.
Which in a given season is amazing. He did it for 8,700 plate appearances. Edgar was a god. Of course, this also clears the path for Big Papi Ortiz, who should make it in a few years as well.
I agree. For every bit of Roy Halladay being an inspiration to me as a pitcher, I loved Edgar Martinez. Just a guy, again, impossible to get out. He hit the ball to all fields with authority. Was a great guy to watch play. Just amazing. I watched a little bit of his call on the MLB Network earlier, and they had Griffey call in. It was the best part of the show for sure, to listen to Griffey and Edgar kind of banter back and forth, and the stuff that they put together in the mid '90s. I mean, those Mariners teams were electric. For all the credit that Griffey got, and eventually A-Rod and big power guys like Buhner, man, Edgar was just the model of consistency. A couple of batting titles in there. Those teams aren't as good and aren't as fun to watch if Edgar Martinez is not on them. For as good as those other guys were. Rich, I know you have some good memories of Edgar Martinez.
Yeah, Edgar Martinez was the guy that I wanted to beat the Yankees every year in the playoffs.
Yeah,
but I always wanted him to. There's nothing I can say that will enlighten anyone else on the greatness of Edgar Martinez. He, similar to what I said earlier, right? There's the theme. He defined or redefined a position. And the position of designated hitter being much more than an old dude who might get you 25 homers a year, but a position to help win games. And that's what Edgar Martinez was. He was just a lethal hitter. And again, similar to how it was fun to watch Mike Mussina pitch, it was really fun to watch Edgar Martinez hit. You could tell he was operating on a different level when he was doing it. It was really fun.
Yeah, I agree. He was one of those guys. It was, if you could catch it on the TV, and again, when they would play the Blue Jays, it was must-watch TV because those teams were stacked. Again, with all the guys I mentioned earlier, you had the big unit, and you had Griffey, and you had Martinez and Buhner. But I always loved watching Edgar hit because it was just the science behind it. It was the inability to get him out. And especially in those mid to late 90s eras when everything was about the long ball, Edgar stuck to what worked for him. And I mean, he stuck to it for, 18 major league seasons. And here he is now in the Hall of Fame with this brand new 99 legend card. Now, I put out a call to Bruce Buffer for this last one. Unfortunately, he didn't return said call because I wanted him to be here to say that it's time for what I'm going to consider, I mean, all these guys are great, but what we are about to showcase is the main event of the stream. Ladies and gentlemen, Mariano Rivera. When you heard Metallica rumble through the confines of Yankee Stadium, you knew that the outcome of the game was all but decided. Mariano Rivera burst onto the scene in 1996 as he finished third in Cy Young voting as the setup man for the world champion Yankees. In 1997, Rivera took over closing duties, and the rest, as they say, is history. Rivera went on to set major league records in games finished with 952, saves with 652, and ERA plus with 205. Arguably the most dominant reliever in Major League history, Rivera had 11 seasons of sub-2 ERA, 9 seasons of more than 40 saves, and posted a sub-1 whip 10 separate times. The 13-time All-Star spent his 19 seasons striking fear into the hearts of opposing hitters with his out-of-this-world cut fastball. Today, Rivera became the first player in Hall of Fame history to be elected with 100% of the votes. And ladies and gentlemen, he will also join the immortal elite as being the 28th perfect card in Out of the Park perfect team. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the long-awaited, long-hyped 100 overall Mariano Rivera. With his 128 stuff, the 100 cutter.
Off to Neverland.
I mean, so little backstory here, okay? I want to give guys a little backstory into some of the things that happened in the Out of the Park Discord. About a month and a half ago, I had 3 separate guys DM me wondering where the perfect Rivera was. And I'm looking around and I'm like, what perfect Rivera are you talking about? Apparently there was a myth. Marcus had said in an AMA on Reddit that there were 28 perfect cards. Well, he misspoke, but people took that seriously. So 27 of the 28 were discovered. And everyone assumed the 28th was Rivera, and nobody could find him. So I did some digging into the files. There's only 27 perfect cards. Immediately after I put that to rest, I send a message to the team. I said, hey guys, we're going to put Rivera in the game when he goes in the hall, and we're going to make it a perfect card, and it's going to be the end of a 2.5-month-long troll job that there was a perfect Rivera in the game. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, Sporer, what can you say about this card?
Unbelievable. I mean, so filthy. Cannot wait to see some of the numbers that he puts up. When you do your week in review, obviously there's not going to be a ton of them out instantly, but I wouldn't be surprised if he skyrockets to the top of some of those ratings of like saves, ERAs, or ERA, and whatever that you put up, so that we see the ones that do have him. And I kind of hope just for the fun of it that some folks in like bronze or silver get him, just to see the utter destruction that he's going to put on some lower level teams as he moves up. He's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, this is insane. I mean, the card itself is crazy. Being a guy who watched him again as a Jays fan, who watched him for all of these years. I mean, like I said in the write-up, he was automatic. Except for that one game in the World Series against the Diamondbacks. That's the only time I remember him. I mean, I know he blew more saves than that.
But it was also a fisted little flare too. Like, hey, credit to the Diamondbacks. It was awesome. I was a Yankees hater. I still am. But, so I was going for them. But to say that, like, he actually beat Mo, I mean, placing it right where it could be to get not be caught was kind of what beat him there, because let's be honest, he didn't put a clean lick on that in any way.
No, the baseball gods were definitely smiling upon Luis Gonzalez on that day. But I mean, again, Rivera was the definition of automatic. I don't think we will ever see another guy who was as automatic for as long a period of time as Mo Rivera. We've seen flashes, like the Gagne save streak comes to mind. Gagne was unhittable for 2 years. We've seen guys, Edwin Diaz was unhittable for the majority of this season.
Mm-hmm.
But to do it for literally like 17, 18 seasons. Again, like I said, he almost won the Cy Young as a setup man. His first season, he was unreal on that team.
The absolute craziest part is the playoff performance. 141 innings, so 2 reliever seasons worth of volume at a .70 ERA, .76 WHIP. That's disgusting. You're known as a playoff stud if you can maintain what you did in the regular season, right? Because it's harder. So you're keeping your same level at a more difficult level. Like Jeter basically put up a full season's worth of his normal numbers in the playoffs, but it's the biggest stage. It's tougher opponents. He absolutely elevated his game to just a monstrous level. Mo was insane, one of a kind for sure.
Yeah, I definitely don't think we will ever see another reliever as good as Mariano Rivera. Like, definitely not in our generation. Probably never again. I mean, just in the way that baseball evolves and goes through these cyclical patterns. But to be that good, primarily with one pitch, for so long, and it's just absolutely insane to look at his baseball reference page and see season after season of 1 point this ERAs and 0 point this WHIP and 40 some saves, and then you get, like you said, you scroll down to the playoff stats and it's like he got better. How do you get better than regular season Mariano Rivera? Oh, yeah, right. You have playoff Mariano Rivera. If this was a playoff card, he'd be like a 110.
Oh, yeah, they'd have to break the scale. They'd have to crack it and put him as a 140 even. Like he was unhittable and just unreal. Mo was a god for sure.
Yeah. So, Rich, as a Mets fan, on the opposite side of the quarter, so to speak, what thoughts on Mariano Rivera, the player? Thoughts on Mariano Rivera, the card?
Well, I couldn't stand it because every year they won the stinking World Series and every year the Mets didn't. And it was very frustrating to watch Mariano Rivera be so consistently great every single year. But one thing that I'm sort of, not proud of myself, but in one way I am, like in the last few years of his career, I really did learn to appreciate it instead of hate it. And it's actually sort of that the last few years of watching him be great in a long career of being great, it's actually sort of helped reframe my attitude about greatness, kind of like watching the Golden State Warriors.
Jordan was someone I didn't fully appreciate because I'm a Pistons guy. And so, it was forget him. Listen, if you are a fan of a team that's against one of the best players, you can sports hate him, say, I can't stand that guy because he beats us, but you better appreciate the greatness when it's in front of you. You will regret it.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And even with the New England Patriots right now, same kind of thing. Like it's kind of cool. And I saw Mariano Rivera's entire career from when he first came up to when he hung him up. And there's not a lot of Hall of Fame careers that I have seen from that kind of perspective. And also being, East Coast New Jersey guy, I saw a lot more of him just, through the year too. And so, yeah, just nothing I can add to the conversation other than the complete massive tip of the hat respect to the great Mariano Rivera, and an amazingly classy person. Understood the position that he was in, somebody who gave back more than could be expected in many ways. And that should be mentioned quite a bit as well.
Well, and he was such a humble individual, and again, I'm not going to be that guy, but in an age where, we're starting to trend more towards the flamboyant side of baseball, and I love it. I really do. But Rivera, enter Sandman hit. Rivera came out to the mound. He threw 8 to 12 pitches. He shook Posada's hand, and that was it. Even today, again, if you watched on MLB Network, so gracious, so classy, so humble, you would never get the feeling from him that he is the greatest reliever in the history of baseball, because he is. but he does not give off that vibe. And again, I'm not using that to say that guys who give off that sort of vibe are negative, but it's just, again, it speaks to the consistency, the performance. Again, he was a lunch can kind of guy in a city that craved winning. And he's one of those generational guys that anyone who was a fan of baseball between 1997 and 2000 and whenever Rivera retired. 14. Anyone who was a fan of another team at one point or another uttered the phrase, if we had Rivera in our bullpen, we would win the World Series.
Oh, for sure.
Every time I see him,
changed any team.
I thought, you know what? The Blue Jays would have won the World Series if we had Rivera in 2015. He was retired by then, but he was that good.
There's no chance the Tigers wouldn't have won one of 06 or 12 with even the 42-year-old version. I think 12 was actually when he got hurt, but just imagine a world where he doesn't get hurt. Put that one in. Totally agree there. And I agree with you too. I do like kind of the more flair in baseball. And I do think it's not something that should be suppressed if that's how you play and that's how you are. But there's room for both.
Yeah.
There's room for the staid guy who's super chill and just business-like. I've got no problem with both aspects being in both ends of the spectrum because it really kind of they highlight each other that way.
Yep.
That way you can appreciate somebody like Mo and you can appreciate somebody like Baez. I definitely don't subscribe to that whole thing about you can't show emotion though. So,
yep.
But Mo was a god, and he and Jeter honestly were perfect superstars. Because they really, you had to keep that even keel because you're going to be there so often. You're in New York. It could have been easy to be consumed by it. And the fact that both, especially Jeter, the way he kind of lived the Playboy lifestyle and really nothing bad ever happened. He wasn't getting arrested and doing any negative things like that. And Mo just kind of doing his thing, just so workman. You said it, lunch pail, man. Total beast.
Yeah, I think it was one of those things where it's like I saw somebody say it pretty well in the chat. It's like they were playing an 8-inning game when you were playing against the Yankees.
Oh, for sure.
You had 8 innings to beat the Yankees because if you got to the 9th and Rivera came in, you had no chance. I mean, it was over. Here's
the thing. He's so good that you can remember the few times that he lost. Everyone talking about the Luis Gonzalez and the Red Sox stuff. That's how good he is. When you can remember the exceptions, like you can name, there's 7,000 games where Jose Valverde sucked because he wasn't that good. And plenty of other closers, like even a great one, like Lee Smith. You don't have the memorable failures because he had kind of a normal amount of failure for a superstar closer. Mo was so good that the few times that he really collapsed because it was so rare.
That's the thing. It happens so frequently. So, ladies and gentlemen, we present to you the perfect Mariano Rivera. Some people have called it the white ghost of perfect team. I assure you he was not in the game until today, but that's just what I say on air, what I say in DM. No, I'm kidding. He was literally
Kris,
put in the game today. Yes, sir.
If you put in any Luis Gonzalez, does that card go up in rating though against Mo? If it's the right one, can you come out with a 2001 iteration?
It doesn't work that way.
Got to code that in there.
We're gonna code in like a clutch versus this guy. So I'm gonna throw up, ladies and gentlemen. Let's all admire these 6 wonderful individuals who will be joining the Baseball Hall of Fame class of 2019. Harold Baines, Lee Smith, Mike Mussina, Roy Halladay, Edgar Martinez, and Mariano Rivera. Again, all 6 of these cards are available in Perfect Team right now in packs. If you bought packs before, let's say you bought packs the other day, it's fine. You will still be able to get these cards if you open them now. The cards in a pack are not generated until you open it. So if you have a bunch of packs that were sitting around that you haven't opened yet, you still have a chance to pull one of these 6 guys. This was amazing. Rich, do you have any final thoughts? Class of 2019.
I think it's a great class. I am very happy with the veterans. I'm very happy with the brand new inductees from the standard process. Great baseball conversations. I'm excited. And like you said at the top, Paul, now let's just get the pitchers and catchers and let's get this thing going for real.
Let's ramp it back up and get going.
Sporer, final thoughts?
Excellent class. Great work here by the content team. These are fantastic cards. I really like the setup. The art, as always, is so clean. I love the way that those gold diamonds look, and even the silver ones on the Roy Halladay, the font for that one with the historical legend. So much cool stuff here. Absolutely love this. Really hope I can cop one of them. Even the Baines, the lowest of the tier. I would love any of these 6 guys to get on my team ASAP.
I agree. I mean, I think, I think I would really enjoy any 6 of these guys. I think they all have different redeeming qualities, and I could definitely see a spot for them on my team somewhere. Obviously, I'm partial to the Halladay. I don't think that needs to be anything that would come as a shock. I've been accused many times on This Week at Perfect Team of being a Jays homer. And I think if people don't understand that I have some sort of say in the content by now, I don't think they're really closely paying attention, just from the standpoint of we seem to have added a lot of. I mean, if the Matt Stairs didn't give it away, I don't know.
Dwayne Ward should have then.
The Matt Stairs, the Dwayne Ward, we had the Molitor in there.
That Molitor's nice, by the way. I like
that Molitor's in there. So I have one more piece of business, and then we're going to get into our one more piece of business, and then we're going to get into our closing statements. Now, you guys know on This Week in Perfect Team, we like to make people's dreams come true, and give some of these perfect points away. So we are going to do that right now while I let the guys do their final spiels. Maximum tickets per user 1. Let's get this set up right quick. All right. So, guys, we're going to give away 2 prizes of 10,000 perfect points apiece. Exclamation point ticket in the chat will get you in. Paul, while we're doing this, why don't you tell people what you're up to, where they can find you on the internet. Take it away.
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch at Sporer. That's Sporer. I stream 5 to 6 nights a week playing Perfect Team, MLB The Show. Every once in a while I play 2K, though I haven't in a while. On Twitter, always on there talking baseball, chopping it up. Season's getting going, so my Fangraphs stuff, you can go to fantasy.fangraphs.com. I run that side. That's the Rotograph side of it. We're really dialing things up because the baseball season's almost here, guys. Super Bowl in a couple weeks. That's kind of the official start of baseball, at least for me. I know a lot of folks that love both sports kind of turn their attention to baseball. So yeah, Twitter and Twitch, and I have my own Discord, and I'm in the OOTP one as well. So hit me up if you want to talk some baseball. I'm always down.
Perfect. We're so glad that you were able to take time out of your busy pre-seasonal schedule to swing by and do this with us. I know you're a big Perfect Team fan, and I know you're a big smart baseball mind. So I was very, very happy that you said yes.
I appreciate you having me on.
Guys, exclamation point ticket to get you in. You only have to type it once. You can only enter once. Rich, while we let that run for a second, why don't you tell everyone about our podcast that we do?
Thank you, Kris. Yes. OOTP Now is our new podcast. Paul is a regular guest. Kris, you are a regular guest where we talk about everything related to out-of-the-park baseball and franchise hockey. It's just a great way for us to have deeper conversations about things than we're able to always in other areas. So it's a lot of fun. And every week we have a new episode. Brand new episode went up today, as a matter of fact. So yeah, OOTP Now, Out of the Park Developments Now. That is our new podcast. Check it out. It's on iTunes. You can get it from, just look at us on Twitter, on Facebook. We're all over the place.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say it's on iTunes, Google Play, your favorite pod catching app. Look up OOTP Now. It's on there. We have a lot of fun recording it every Monday night. This week's episode, I think, particularly was a little more haha than usual, which feel like maybe after 7 episodes, we're hitting our comfort zone. Guys, we're going to leave the giveaway open for another 15 seconds. Exclamation point ticket in the chat. We're giving away not 1, 2 prizes of 10,000 perfect points. If you are selected as a winner, if you're in the Discord, go to the upper right-hand corner, find where it says Kris Perfect Team CM. Send me a DM with your team name and your username, and make sure you have the capitalization of your username right, because it is case sensitive. We will leave the draw open for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold your fire. The draw is closed. Always see those guys right at the end. They're like, "Oh man, I missed it. I gotta leave. I gotta leave."
There for 3 minutes, not doing it, and then
you know, listen, man, you can't. Sometimes you can't please everyone. All right, let's draw some winners. Let me get my soundboard all ready here. Winner number 1 is Killapop. Congratulations, Killapop. You have won yourself 10K worth of perfect points. I know you're in the Discord. Flip me a DM with your username and your team name, and I will get you that 10K perfect points here, a lickety split. Winner number 2 is BDL1234. BDL, same goes for you. If you're in the Discord, send me a DM with your team name, your username. If you're not in the Discord, you can send it to me on Twitter at OTP Perfect Team, or you can whisper us right here on Twitch. Congratulations to both of our winners. 10,000 perfect points apiece. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you can find all things Perfect Team all over the interwebs. Twitter.com/OTP Perfect Team. Also, Twitter.com/OTP Baseball. You can find us on Facebook. Facebook.com/OTP Baseball. Discord.gg/OTP. We're getting close to 2,300 members. Get your butts in there. Lots of great chatter happening on the daily about real baseball, Perfect Team, auctions, people showing off their fire pulls. Get up in there if you can. If you're on the Discord, it's wonderful. If you want to buy your very own copy of Out of the Park Baseball 19, which comes with free access to Perfect Team, you can do so by heading to otpdevelopments.com right now. Check it out on Steam. Check it out on EA Origin. If you're an Origin Access member, you get OTP 19 for free. It's included in the subscription. No reason not to. You can also pick it up on the Mac App Store. Paul Sporer, Rich Grisham, I can't say enough thank yous for you guys taking time out of your Tuesday to be here. It would not have been the same show if you guys weren't here to help us out. So I appreciate you guys coming by. Open invitation. You guys can come on TWIPT anytime you want. You can follow Rich Grisham on Twitter at Rich Grisham. You can follow Paul Sporer on Twitter at Sporer. You can follow me on Twitter at SnaggleJ. As always, I am SnaggleJ, a.k.a. Kris Jardine, community manager for Out of the Park Baseball's Perfect Team. And until next time, keep swinging for the fences. Have a great rest of the night, folks.